Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.
Welcome to Synctank. So how you guys doing?
Right.
Whoa, I got a lot of music in the background.
Hey,
So, the future. What have you been working on, Thomas? I know you've made a bunch of art recently. We were just looking at some of that. I'll see if I can pull some of that up in the meantime while you do. Who can do it first? Let's see about that. No? You can't win.
yeah, I mean, well, we're talking about all the Alf and the Bigfoot stuff.
I'm the worst because I had it and then I had the other window open because all of a sudden I also was looking at the thing about the shady Beatles. Okay, how about that? We'll do that first. AI Beatles music. What's up with the AI Beatles music? I heard a bunch of people saying they got it stuck in their head recently, and so in other words, they've got a hypnotic song. But everyone also says afterwards that they hate it, like they didn't like the song, right?
Well, there's the AI Beatles music, of which there's a ton of, and then there's the new Beatles, the lost tape or whatever that Yoko found. I liked it. I thought it was good, but the thing is that it doesn't sound like the Beatles produced music. Like they had to go to a lot of trouble. Like when Apple bought Apple, like Apple computers bought Apple records or whatever, and like had to like figure out, because the way those songs are engineered, there's nothing else like it. I mean, it's very unique, and so like it just sounds like a new kind of tune. It doesn't have that. You can hear John's voice, it sounds good or whatever, but it doesn't sound like a true Beatles song, which maybe it's just at this point it's like trying to, the same technology that brought us to the moon. Of course we can't reproduce that, it's like
Dude,
Is there an inside joke there that like it's not real?
right, that's the joke. The Beatles were always AI.
Well,
they were always AI. They were so ahead of
There's a lot to say about that, I think. I mean, first off, Tavistock, just on like a real simple level, like it is a super engineered thing. And these amphetamine German by agents, like I think it's kind of an interesting, the whole thing, like just remember as a kid at the Nick, they had a Hard Day's Night play. So I remember seeing like John Lennon in the tub with his U-boat submarines, and he's just shouting in German. It's like as the water is flooding. Like there's a lot to the Beatles, like what they really are.
Dude, have you ever seen How I Won the War with John Lennon?
No.
There's an obscure movie called How I Won the War, and it's got some jokes in it that I'm sure at the time for British people they were just hilarious, but now it's kind of edgy, man. It's good.
With Woody, is he really Woody Allen made this movie, right?
No. I don't think Woody Allen had anything to do with this movie.
Oh, this is John Lennon? John Lennon, though, looks like Woody Allen to me for a second. That's actually...
Oh, okay. Oh, I can see that. Yeah, sure.
It's the Larry David of John Lennon. It's this movie. Okay. How I Won the War. So, like, what's this about? I don't mind the spoilers. I guess it's about him in, like, the worst of conditions of...
The guy on the left kind of looks like Jeff, too.
Isn't this the guy from I'm gonna just make up names now, but like the guy from the Willy Wonka movie, who's the father.
Oh, he
of
does
Little
look like the father of Veruca Salt, right? Yeah.
Veruca Salt. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
probably wrong. It's just facial.
I don't know. It's just at a glance, but basically, you know, they speak to the time not long after Britain was, you know, an ally of Germany in World War II, and so some of the humor along those lines is like it kind of pushes an envelope even for the time when this movie came out. But yeah, it's a good movie. It actually syncs with an Oasis album called "Be Here Now." I think I need to upload that at some point. But yeah.
Ooh, Stefan became a member. We love you, Stefan. Stefan, we need to do a show soon. I know you wanted to do a show like this week, and I was lazy, so we're gonna do a show like very soon, I swear. But also very shrewd becoming a member, because something I noticed about memberships is I think when you're a member, your comments just auto super chat. So it's kind of like a thrifty super chat move. So I'm just gonna say that to all the other people who are looking at membership options. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Hey,
Well,
I know we dealt with some shit with the copyright stuff last time with the
oh my
old stuff,
gosh, right?
but
Yeah.
like for real, like if we were talking about Bimbo's initiation, I think we should do like
What's
an
wrong
like
with
an
breaking the copyright? Yeah, sorry.
can we yeah, totally. Can we do like a thing with from the Bimbo's initiation where it's like want to be a member, and like use that somehow for our thing here? I don't know. Let's put it out there. Maybe I
We
should talk
could.
about that off.
I'm really interested in how this works. Like, so you know, like one of the ones that blows my like I've done a lot of copyright stuff. You go to like YouTube/Xirtus, you'll notice like there's a bunch of videos on here. What's the one I did? I think I do like DMX. Yeah, check this out. I did a DMX one time. I'm not gonna play it here just in case I have to clear it again. But like DMX cleared this song a year to the day to the death of himself, right? A year before he died, like on that day, like a year before he died, on the day he died, like is when I got this video cleared of X Gon' Give It to You, which I don't know, like something goes on with copyright.
Wait. Are you dressed as like a Jesuit priest doing like what are you doing there? What is happening?
X is gonna give it to you in this music video. I think it's a deal. But the point is,
this is the most random. I wasn't expecting to see this in the first 5 minutes.
If you were in a courtroom, you would say this is legal fair use. I think that's what the demonstrative experiment was. This is what can you do that's legal fair use? And I think that's at the point where like I will use the song. I'm dancing around. It means something. It couldn't exist. It couldn't exist without it. That's what fair use is about. Like David makes things that could not exist without the fact that he has seen these things and created new things. And also that they don't replace the original. Like there's nothing about this that reminds you of DMX at that point.
Who are you appealing to though? Like who are you even making this argument to? Because in our lifetimes, you're going to start appealing to like the AI guideline judge, right?
Yeah, I appeal to judgment. I do. I appeal to judgment.
All this like crafty like wordsmith and like, oh, like, you know, it's legal because of this precedent. But what if the response is just, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work under, you know, the guidelines that have been implanted into me?
That's what I've been living with for the last 10 years on YouTube, you know, at least. And I think, David, you've even doing this longer with Vimeo.
It's been the bane of my existence until I was lucky enough to have the SyncBook website with Alan and Guillaume helping me do that. And now Twitter seems to just let me do my thing, which is great. But yeah, it's been, I don't know.
After years of fighting. So
I've said like it's caused more, you know, challenges and distress to me than just about any relationship is like just struggling with copyright stuff for the art that I do. Because I've been doing this art forever and I've always come across that. Even though I find things out, I had an older friend who told me, oh, we used to play Dark Side of the Moon, The Wizard of Oz in a freaking theater in like the 80s. And I'm just like, wow, where are those days, man? Where it's just like a given. You're like, well, that's creative and different. Why not? Okay, so this also applies to America. If you try and use stuff that's foreign, I found this out. You can't always use the
there's different laws in different places. So I actually have appealed to the European Union has its own common law issues as well. But yeah, so I wanted to show footage from Man with the Movie Camera, which is a 1927 Soviet film, and it's public domain everywhere. It's a freaking communist film. It's public domain, except for in I think one country in Spain, and then the lawyers out of Spain tried to like control it out of being seen in the rest of Europe because of their control. And so there's like a little fascist lawyer who I fought with him for like about a year and a half, like over and over again in various interesting ways. I mean, it's actually more interesting than anything else, is like the diabolical things I did there. But
Does
it did not work.
Resolved physically? Is that what I'm hearing?
It all worked out. It's like, hey, Travis gifted a membership. Travis, what a mensch. Look at this guy. He's actually doing mitzvahs for the people right now. God bless you. And everybody, whoever just became, hey, was that Roscoe? You just became a member because of Travis. So everybody say thank you. Thank you. And then Omega Point Research, YouTube enforces DMCA complaints from everywhere. So this is what I was going to get to. Right, it's actually interesting that they do have an AI. It's a really crude AI. It's just as bad as you're talking about. It's an AI that doesn't really care. It says, hey, someone's found with this machine something that is likeness to this thing. And then from there, you get to go through your process and you say, okay, well, is it because I know the person, or no, you're like other. And they're like, is it because like you think that other? And then you just have to write your statement. And the statement is like Fair Use Act. And you say, I hereby invoke the fair use, which is, common law in the United States. And you can say, and is doctrine of the European Union Command of Code. And in fact, the Russian Federation gave me the right to use footage from War and Peace. And Moscow does not believe in tears, right? For Western use. And I even put up Generation Pi. I put up the entire movie without subtitles. With subtitles was the only thing I added. It was completely the regular movie with the permission of the Russian Federation, because I used fair use correctly. So there's ways to do it. The problem is a lot of these people don't promote fair use. They don't want you to know that you can use fair use because they're trying to control the art. And this is weird to me as a Yugoslavian, as a Slavic person, because you would take art and you would just build on art. You would sing a song that someone else has sung and you'd add a new verse to it, and you do a new concert. And it's just very common in our culture.
Dude, and fucking Motown, dog.
Yeah, I mean, America too. That's the thing that's strange. Where does it go to this idea? Like, I mean, even artists cover songs. So where do we get this idea? Now you can only cover a song that your label lets you cover. It's very strange. And it
also feels so damn subjective, like, even because my mind always goes to, there's this like less than a 3-second sample that Biz Markie used in a song that was clearly transformative, but at that point in time, and still it becomes this precedent of sort of, having to clear samples no matter what the length. That's what that precedent.
But the thing is that Biz Markie, they used him as an example. It's funny you should mention him. Like, and he was hung out to dry over using, and like, it's a weird question. It's almost like when you make pot illegal and you're like, well, you're going to release all those people who have been serving time, like, for a fucking joint or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like he got the book thrown at him and paid so much money, and it was like, it felt, that was an example. I don't always look at it like the race card or whatever, but in that case, I'm like, dude, that just feels to me like blatant racism. I mean, you had
good job,
Vanilla Ice just like trying to say that like his song, like, it's like, no, it goes bum ticka bum 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 bum, and mine goes bum ticka bum 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 bum, and you're like, what the freak is happening? So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really unfair what happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I was about to a lot of Dre stuff too, because he would replay like a sample. And there's this like, anyway, it's just weird because it's so damn subjective. Yes, what were we gonna say, Andres?
It's not. Check it out. Now might be a good here on.
Fell too far. Boxing gloves. I am not ever going to let this go.
So yeah, yeah, this is legal. I can do this all day. Yeah, all you got to do is play the notes yourself or have a robot do it for you. If you make those notes, if you're playing Western notation yourself, you're fine.
So well, we're talking about YouTube, and then you're talking about, well, what if you go to produce an actual song? So it's like,
you guys keep this up. We're gonna have members onlys all the time. This is great. I like it. Sorry.
was it Marvin Gaye's family that sued all those? Like, it's like a bunch of people. It was like, but not. It's not just that it's not even about samples though. They did it because it sounded too similar. They're like, they were like suing people over a vibe and winning. They were like, no, he's trying to do the vibe of, and it was like, really? Like, that's why I bring up Motown. I'm like, dude, if that was the case, then we wouldn't even have Motown. Like everyone
Ed
was building
Sheeran
off of each
won.
other, you know.
Ed Sheeran won that one, the Marvin Gaye Vibe lawsuit. So like they tried to prove
No,
that Vibe could be a thing.
there was a bunch of different ones that family
I
did.
think the thing is, it's going to end up being though, like Vibe is likeness, and likeness are going to say, you know, like it's not going to work. I get why
Where we
they're
go
trying to
from here, but there was
Yeah.
a window of time where people were actually winning those kind of cases.
Yeah, it's true. I think the thing though is that the real issue. So like, let's think about Snow White for a second. Where's that Snow White clip? I had that up for a second. Like Snow White is the issue. You've got, and it's not the wokeness. It's the corporate control and lack of fair use. Because if I had a bunch of people, a bunch of moms making up Snow White stories, and one of them was better, like you got the J.K. Rowling Harry Potter, great. Someone makes up a Snow White that's good. No, here we have the only Snow White it's allowed to come out this year, that's authorized, etc. Right? Like the way that they Disneyfied Snow White, and this is something that used to be everyone had their own Snow White. This is absurd that we're at this point. Where
Well, it was the first feature-length cartoon ever by anybody.
Betty Boop, no less.
Dude,
no, but feature length is what I'm saying, like a movie, like a cartoon
does look
movie.
like
Snow
Betty.
White's the first. Oh, you're saying that she looked like Betty Boop?
Yeah, I never thought about it, but where's the
Betty Boop was made in the likeness of like 10 different women, so I don't know.
Well, but Betty Boop did play Snow White, didn't she? There was a whole cartoon. That's the one with
oh, she's holding a Mormon tablet.
Mr. Bones. Man, I can't remember his name. He's on the spot right now. Oh yeah. This one was extremely difficult to get AI to play along and generate because it kept saying for the longest time, like, I can't draw you Joseph Smith looking at a golden plate. Like, I refuse to do it. So it's like, okay, what kind of clothes did Joseph Smith wear?
Right.
Okay, it was like Frontier. Okay, like draw me Betty Boop wearing Frontier. Now give her a plate. And it was like, I'm sorry, I can't make her hold a plate that has hieroglyphics because that's clearly Mormon. And then I was just, you have to argue with it a little bit, I guess, right? Going against what I was saying before.
Gold, if you start over, like, because if it knows where you've been thinking,
you're
dirty.
Yeah,
you're dirty. If you're like a handsome blonde, a most handsome blonde man holding cuneiform gold tablets, or what is the word? I think tablet is right, or sheets, even whatever it was. There's slates, gold slates. That works, right? And you also can say, sorry.
I just want to say, I mean, because growing up, I was like very socially awkward, and I just like loved being able to work with computers because they did, like, I could say exactly what I wanted, and they would do exactly what you wanted. You didn't have to like figure out how to finesse thing, like convince it to do what you wanted, right? And now it's the exact opposite. Now you go to a computer that's a digital machine that you should just be able to say, here's the input and I want this output. But you have to like, it'll be like, no, I don't think that's right. I don't think I should let you do that. And what's crazy is that you can guide, like you can 100% guide it into making the exact thing that you want, but you have to do it like slowly. You got to like massage it in. You got to like sweet talk it like, oh no, I don't really want this. You know, you're the one that thinks that I want this.
Yeah.
But, like, what if you just said, though, you know, draw Betty Boop as Joseph Smith looking at a gold plate? Like, why is that so hard?
So for me, though, what it is it's like, it really does, again, it feels like a Yugoslavian thing. So the other night I was talking, so I've been doing a lot of these posts in these groups. Let me see if I can pull up, like, in Facebook. I've joined like Christian fundamentalists and anti-Catholic and anti-Protestant, pro-Catholic, pro-Protestant groups and everything like that, and just go and posting this like crazy Mormon Cthulhu art that they're just like really confused about, you know, and just see what they do, right? Like,
are you hoping to gain follower? Like, do you even have some sort of like
it's going hard? People
to
are posting posts of my posts in groups of posts, so it's like you're getting like 200 likes on "It's okay to be Mormon." You know what I mean? Like. And they're just not likes. This is straight up laughs. Like, this is like people are shocked, but it's going into their subconscious, right? So, I mean, the way I figure I meet these people, then when I go into these groups, they're like, oh, all of a sudden they start posting, and then that's when the group freaks out. I've been in like 6 of these groups that they like permanent ban me, or they'll suspend me because they realize I've just started a heresy, and like people in the group that they're like, it is okay to be Mormon. I'm a Mormon. I'm a heretic. I have 6 kids, and I'm like, whoa, bro.
And can I just say, like, it's something I've never understood. It's like, how is it that like it's completely against the law of rules to portray Muhammad, but who knows what Muhammad looked like? Is there like something about how Muhammad looked that I haven't
red
been privy
hair,
to that
green
I
eyes.
know?
You know the red hair. That's why they have the red turban thing, is because he had red
Right.
hair.
So I guess like if you're gonna like ask AI to produce an image of Muhammad, it's probably not gonna do it. But when you're describing like to massage it, you're like, here, what are the descriptors of Muhammad? And then you're like, ha ha, I got you to do Muhammad. Like there could be a whole controversy emerging out of that. I mean, there was hostages taken over the release of the message, which we've discussed at length in the past. In Washington or whatever for a 3-day siege over a movie that implied it was going to show Muhammad because it was called Muhammad, Messenger of God, but they never show Muhammad in the movie.
Isn't this also what that stupid Hillary Clinton CIA like debacle was about, right? Where they said that it was a movie that was gonna be about Muhammad, and that turned into this whole thing, and they used that to it did its job.
It was all made up.
I don't remember what was.
I did have a better post, but someone was like, so I've been doing Afro Mormon futurism, because this one, it's like, this is the, like, you just have to hit them where it hits them, and when they realize, they're like, oh, weren't they banned? You're like, no, they weren't banned until they were banned. They originally were like an abolitionist movement. It's crazy what they were originally. And then people are like, Scientology. It's like, no, Battlestar Galactica. So as you start to like peel back the onion, it forces all these people. So, all right, so all these people start coming out of the group, and then they start posting their own things. And so then the group starts shutting down because they realize like there's all of these people that are already secretly like behind these ideas, right? So I meet these guys that are in Russia and in Serbia, and in like, I'm seeing Slavic names. I'm like, what? And you're like, a Mormon? Like, what is this about? And they're like, apparently Scientology and Mormonism, like they're hitting them wherever they can. And they've tried Africa now, but they were trying Eastern Europe. So they've all heard about this stuff. And so they're like, how, they're the best also at making AI art. Like I'm seeing some really great AI art. And it's because it's the same logic. You're used to living under censorship and suppression. And so this idea now that we have a competitive edge living in a woke, censored, fascist society, because we're able to use the linguistic programming to say the things, or to issue out the things, not just out of AI, but just to understand like, whoa, okay, you walk into this room, if you say these words, people will kill you. They'll like literally light you on fire. Like that happens in parts of Slavic countries. But if you say things other ways that mean like worse things, but you say it in a way that they're more comfortable with. And it's amazing how people can be made comfortable.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that what a lot of like NLP is about in the first place? Like, cause you're kind of like, that you'll get a reaction from somebody that will be adverse to something that you want to communicate, but you do it in such a way that it doesn't just go under the radar. It's presented in a different package, so they find it acceptable.
There's actually a lot of that.
Joseph Smith. That's the
like when you talk to like one of these chat GPTs or OpenAI or whatever it is, that's like you have to kind of convince it. There is this level of like, okay, what part did it get offended about? Do I know why it's saying no? And can I kind of like beat it to the punch? So then you open up a new session and it's like, draw something that's not a real person, but looks like, and then give it like the exact definition of someone that could only look a certain way. It does fine with Betty Boop, yeah. And I'm fascinated with how good it's starting to do with lettering. I think the advance in how it renders letters is going to be the thing that makes it sort of ubiquitous pretty soon.
Lettering in hands.
That's totally lettering in hands. Because I was looking at that picture you just shared of like the Harry and the Hendersons type Freemason, and I'm looking at the book that he's holding. I'm like, does that actually say something? I realized, I was like, I didn't catch that. I'm not as hip to the AI stuff as you guys, but like I was like, wow, it doesn't really seem to know how to do lettering. Maybe it'll
I just didn't spend enough time with it. It was just a really quick one.
Yeah, you can also say the wrong things. I've had some pretty weird, like if you go to Cursed AI, I'm scared to even take you there, but like Cursed AI is a cool little spot where a bunch of people post accidents waiting to happen. Some of them are more cursed than others. I don't know.
You're just asking for trouble scrolling through.
Yeah, it's a dangerous place to be. I'll put it that way. There's a pretty good set right now. One of the trends is, oh no, you have to see that one. Oh man, hold on. This guy's, he's trying to eat a motor right now. Hold on, he's gonna do it. There he is. Yeah. So
this started too. There was a Will Smith eating spaghetti AI for the longest time that was pretty good.
So yeah, but this is also a great place to post like spirit posting, because once you start spirit posting, then other people start spirit posting. What was the deal? So we talked about this actually for a second. What's the Mormon conspiracy theory about Bigfoot? It's like Cain or something like that.
Yeah. So, man, I'll have to pull up some notes,
no.
but there was a specific creature that was walking down a road, and he claimed that he encountered a hairy creature, and that when he actually approached the hairy creature, the creature told him that he had this is awesome, that he was cursed to walk the earth because he was Cain, and he had the curse of Cain on him. And I mean that was kind of the whole story.
That makes sense, kind of in a weird way. Like, as much as that's like the craziest story, like that also the idea that the person who's cursed to walk the earth would be covered in hair sticks out to me because of the whole Harry Mary thing, right? Like, let's go back to that for anyone who's forgotten. But Harry Mary, Holy Harry Mary, there it is. Nope, gone.
What?
There it is.
I actually have this tied in to Harry Mary, believe it or not. So
do it. Do the Chewbacca.
So okay, so here's the this is just like the biblical notes on Bigfoot. So first you've got in the Bible Esau described as red and hairy at birth. This is Genesis 25:25. And this trait is incredibly significant in the story of Jacob and Isaac, because later Jacob uses goat skin to try and emulate Esau's hair.
Dude.
And, so that's the first reference to maybe Bigfoot. Then the second you've got the Harry Mary, which you mentioned, is 1492 Remen Schneider. 15th century Sforza Hours both depict this fur-covered Harry Mary. And there's another one, Palliau's 1460 Assumption of Mary Magdalene.
Dude,
so you've got these three separate Harry Marys. And then you've got this the Mormon aspect. So it was in 1835, there was an LDS apostle, David Patton, and he reported meeting a hairy, tall figure in Tennessee, and that this figure claimed that they were the cursed biblical Cain. And this is sort of like that Mormon Bigfoot that ties into it.
Dude.
Yeah, this is it.
So what blows my so then you've got red furry hair, and like, you know, the idea of these like the full furry faced people and everything, and like that Muhammad, you're not allowed to draw pictures of him, and he had red hair. I don't know, man.
Right.
Let me just throw this out here too, and I'll shut up because I want to hear something from David on this aspect of it. But like the ineffable name of God, right? Some people interpret this as if you hear it or if you say it, like your head explodes. I mean, I'm oversimplifying that.
Dissolution, yeah.
Right, but there's another aspect to it that, and this is, you know, quote for Sticky Fingers from Onyx, but God couldn't really make a rule that he himself couldn't enforce, right? Like he's not capable of making a law that a human could break in some ways. So maybe don't draw pictures of Muhammad is just like, don't say the ineffable name of God. It's like, you know, don't touch your own elbow.
Well, there's also the idea that it's not that you shouldn't, like a law like that. It's a law that you can't. So it's like more like gravity. So
well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. It depends
you can't say the name of God because it's not that like it's too hard to pronounce, right?
No, it is. That's the thing. It's impossible. It's literally impossible to say. And there are people that can hear it because you can be sealed in the Holy Spirit to hear and receive God, because God can make anything possible, at least according from this like cosmogony idea of like what is a super omnipotent thing. It has to be able to do anything, so it can make rules that anything can be, you know, capable, right?
Right. There's also the idea that's kind of more relatable to like I think what Indians would call the highest level of like samadhi, you know. So if it's asam pragyat, and to say the name is to dissolve into the ultimate reality. It's like an outsider may look at that and all they'll see is complete and total paralysis. But for the actual person, there's no more experience at that point, because for something to exist, it literally has to stand out in space. So in terms of the dissolution of their consciousness or something, so it can get pretty far out like that. If you're treating it that to pronounce the name is liberation, like moksha, beyond stages of enlightenment. Like enlightenment's one thing, ultimate liberation's another. So there's that idea.
Like to be able to say it, you would no longer be human. Like that's kind of the idea. I think you become more than a normal person.
Right, and there's actually like a mathematical connection there too that actually ties in with the prophecy in the book of Isaiah. It has to do, like, it's so funny, like as far as I can tell, Mountain Dew like plays off of this. I don't know if I ever talked to you guys about this, but like you'll notice that there's a theme throughout zombie movies where you'll see Mountain Dew show up. So like over and over and over again. And like Invasion, like with Nicole Kidman, like it starts with her with the Mountain Dew and it ends with her with the Mountain Dew. And then if you watch like World War Z, they shoot the Coke machine and the Mountain Dew all pours out. It's all Mountain Dew. And then if there's like a comedy that came out not that long ago with like Bill Murray and stuff about zombies. It's like the Dead Kid, I forget what it's called, but there's like a guy just like, it's not Zombieland. It's another one that I forget what it's called.
Well,
but
when I think of Mountain Dew, like because I don't drink it, I guess like the first thing I think of is like Appalachian green apple ciders that are produced as like a back for their like moonshine, right? Like so you have something to drink the cocktail of the moonshine with.
Yeah, have you seen the original Mountain Dew commercial? It's about like a hillbilly and like a hot chick.
Sounds great.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm convinced that I've decoded the meaning of Mountain Dew showing up in zombie movies because I noticed the reoccurring theme in the first place. I was like, why does Mountain Dew show up in so many zombie movies? And I realized it's because of the Hebrew word tal, which I've seen this referenced in Kabbalistic commentary. Is this the commercial? This is like the first.
This is the original Mountain Dew.
This is the most base. So basically, the deal is a Celtic Pict is meeting some sort of Nordic new Anunnakian priestess, Oracle of Delphi, and she's becoming an Oracle of Delphi. So she's now
the prophecy in the book of Isaiah that speaks to the dead rising. Basically coming back to life. What is it that brings the dead back to life? And it's the Hebrew word tal, which literally translates to do in English. So like the gematria of the Hebrew word tal is actually 39. And so if you spell out the name tetragrammaton yud he vav using aleph, so like yud would be yud dalet, hey would be hey aleph, vav would be vav aleph vav, that will equal 39, and then which is the same gematria as the do. But then if you were to add the final hey, which is the two heys in tetragrammaton, is the mother and the daughter in of God. So upper and lower Shekhinah relates to Bina and Malkut, and so Malkut is in exile. So they say until as long as Shekhinah is in exile, Israel's in exile, yada, yada, yada. But the idea is that if you add that final hey with the aleph, it equals 45, which is the gematria of Adam. And so being Adam, right, which is aleph in blood, literally, dam is blood. And so there's this idea of like tetragrammaton isn't like as we exist and what we have, like it's not complete as long as the lower Shekhinah is in exile. For it to be united completes man, because we this is weird. This is where I almost feel like the trans hysteria is almost just like some kind of like aversion to like what we ultimately are in the first place, like anyway, like, but we're trying to replicate it in form. Because like intuitively, like we know subliminally that there's actually everything's united, but we're like trying to like replicate that in the external, in the world of opposites, which is like duality or whatever. And so we're like coming up to face with our duality, which could actually be a good sign ultimately, because it's like we're having to face the shell of ourselves to get to beyond that is like the reality. So there's this idea of the reunification actually is the masculine and feminine principles in humanity actually ultimately have to be united, but we're doing it in a way that's like ultimately an aversion to that, so it gets all fucking twisted and weird, because the Klipo mirror tetragrammaton, and it only gets so close in the mirror, it's not the thing in itself. It's kind of complicated, but that's the basic premise. So so there's something to do with that the dew brings the dead back to life, and the way they interpret that in Hollywood movies is just to keep showing you Mountain Dew in relationship to the zombies for some weird artistic communication around that.
Got to be something to it, yeah. It also just seems really weird to me, like because if Mountain Dew is what like Okies made to make it possible to drink moonshine, then like how can anyone drink it by itself? It just seems weird. It became its own thing, and then what else is in it? Because like is this some sort of like
Yellow 5?
thelemic, like archonic Eucharist. Like, I don't know, because there's probably some weird, those chemicals, bro. Like something weird's going on with
it's
that.
It's a little misleading. It doesn't actually make your dick shrink. It just makes it so it stays the same size.
Yeah, it corons and changes the size of the room around you, I think is the deal. Yeah, and we didn't even make a segue for the shitty Beatles, but that's okay. I feel like that was the shitty Beatles. Like, it's the shitty Beatles. You know what I mean?
So it's not just a clever name, right?
Yeah, it's like a real, like, they foretold. That's another prophecy fulfilled. Good job, Wayne's World.
Are people really digging on the AI Beatles? Is that like a,
you know what? It's like it's hard to do this because like this is like this could segue into like the real issue of this, which is what people are saying about where is it at? You know, the actors issue, because everyone's all upset about AI, and so they're saying, oh, humans are still better, and like, so they're just trying to say like the AI thing is like not as good, because, and I think it sucks to say that because it's not the right argument to make. I mean, it's not really what matters whether or not if someone enjoys something. I mean, this is the argument that already lost every time when symphonies didn't want to have their music on the radio, then 4-person blues bands became popular and rock and roll thrived. When rock and roll bands didn't want to have their music on Napster, then techno music and rapping and all sorts of cool music, rap and techno mixed together and thrived. And yeah, and then, you know, now we're at a point where, you know, if humans feel like humans have to make art, then machine art will thrive.
Dude,
you know,
totally. And this is the fucking thing, especially when it comes to music, is that the counterculture, people treat it that it was like the counterculture, we relate to it like it was like the 60s thing and whatever. But like those people ended up on the radio because they became super popular in the areas, and we know that there was scouts or whatever. Now that's unheard of. And so but the thing is like you still have like some of the most cutting edge music that belongs to the true counterculture is not widely known. It's not playing on the radio, yet it's more accessible than, say, it used to be, in terms of like you had to have been there. Like if you wanted to see Jimi Hendrix before Woodstock, like you had to have been there. You know, it's not true anymore. You know,
my mom was so upset. She's like, my mom's like, my sisters made me take them to the Jim Morrison concert, and he was just wibbling around the microphone like it was his penis. And I don't know. My mom did not enjoy it.
Oh, really? My mom saw Jimi Hendrix, and she said that it was the first time she'd ever heard surround sound, that they had speakers set up all around the room, and he wasn't on the stage. This is before he was like really famous. She said he was in the middle of the room, and like if you were going to see Jimmy, you had to be like up close. She's like, everyone was on speed and acid, and it was just like, and he didn't play songs. He just went crazy on the guitar, and everyone was like, so this was in San Francisco. I think this may have been in the Matrix. I'm not sure the venue, but yeah, she went to see. I think she saw the Great Society at the Matrix actually. But yeah, no, it's just total madness. You know, it's like what we would think of a Jimi Hendrix concert. You'd think he'd at least be playing songs, not just like just going nuts.
No, taking apart a guitar. That's the thing. Like, what noises can this guitar make? It's pretty.
That would be way cool. I think I might be in a minority here, but I'm not even really a fan of live music venues unless I know it is like impromptu. It's like a thing that you won't see in any other show. But so many concerts, it's just them, you know, replaying the exact same songs they've been playing on the road for so many times.
Yeah, you should. You ever go to noise shows? You ever like? I love to do circuit bending. Eli and I would do these circuit bending shows, and how do you even show this? That's not even the right. Yeah, basically you mod circuit bending. You know what circuit bending is?
Right.
You take a circuit
I've
and
got a Casio Rep Man. Right. I haven't wanted to mod it yet, but I know it's like at the top of the list of those.
Just get some of these cheap ones, because like you go to like any Goodwill, you get some kids toy, and you add if you have an old clock radio, you can add like an oscillating knob in between a chip or something like that. So there's a lot of these groups, and they'll meet, and you can find them, and you can go to a noise show. I love noise shows because nothing's ever the same. These are interactive. Sometimes you can get someone will hand you the thing if they're not like too crazy about it, and like that's like a lot of them love that. They'll try to like hand out noise machines. I think that's really the same idea. Like that's kind of what Jim Morrison was doing. I mean, sorry, Jimi Hendrix was doing. Like,
well, if you did say that about Jim Morrison though, because he had this kind of prophetic vision of music of the future that he spoke to.
He did that with video.
Yeah.
No, Jim Morrison was more like Marilyn Manson. He's a video maker. He did like art films, and like because Ray was a musician, like that's why he worked with him.
Well, that's another thing. He wanted to be a director first and foremost. That was more than a musician, more than a poet, and like that's like why he went to college to be a filmmaker, and that didn't really come to fruition for him, unless if you want to look at it sync-wise. But yeah.
But if you've ever seen the Monterey Jazz Pop Festival, it's really interesting to watch the Jimi Hendrix sequence, because you can see all the white, like middle class Monterey conservative kids or like normal humans who've never taken.
Is that the show where he set it on fire, the guitar?
Yeah.
Fire in that show? Okay, cool.
And so all these kids are just like, what is he doing? Because it's so like they're from Footloose, they've never seen anything like this before. And
not even a lot of bands.
Yeah, and he's just like he's really like torn apart reality around him, which is pretty cool.
Dude, I like that you keep bringing up Footloose as a communicator, because I did that in 2020, 2021 a lot. I was like, what the frick is this Footloose reality?
Yeah. There's two different kinds of people, I think. There's like people who grew up in Footloose and people who didn't. And like to find out about Footloose is like to find out about like the lowest Naraka of suffering. You're like, there's a place, and like it's hard to understand because you think of it as a kid like, there were like the dark ages, but you can't imagine like it's happening now. Like, okay, but they're doing that in Africa. Like, no, dude, it's like all over the place. It's even here, dude. Like right next door, there's people like Flanders is in your own neighborhood. Like it exists everywhere. I don't know. That's scary. That's the scariest thing.
It's true. It's terrifying. That's the thing, is that you can totally disassociate. Like that's something that happens to those people. First, it happened to these people, and I said nothing because I wasn't one of those people.
Oh my God, I was watching Alf yesterday, and he's like, first they came for the communists, and I said nothing because I wasn't a communist. Then they came
follow that with "I kill me."
Then they came for the Jesuits.
Did he say that?
He did. He said that.
He did. He said that.
I kill me.
I kill me.
I kill me.
We need a soundboard.
He does say it. He does say it. I love it. I think he's just. It's so real, and also, it feels like another Dobie Gillis moment that there's a movie, because I never saw the movie, so I just assumed it was like the series drops off. So I just saw the movie, and it's amazing because like you have to imagine my whole life I'm worried about Alf and his family. His family disappeared. They don't even like show what happened to him. So I'm pretty convinced I was right that they just murdered his family for hiding him.
Oh, Melmac blew up. It's like Krypton. Yeah.
No. I'm talking about like crackhead dad and like the hot mom and like the like
what happened in Project Alf?
Yeah, like, I'm saying like they're like disappeared, and like maybe I misunderstand that because like I did get tired near the end of this, but I'm expecting him to be tortured my whole life, and finally they torture him. And it just ends up like they electrocute themselves. The guy ends up dying. He's like, well, you be careful with that lie detector. Did you see what happened to the last guy? And like, he just,
dude, I'm gonna admit something to you guys, that this is just for my own personal experimentation. Like, I don't plan to go public with this. Whatever happens, it's just how weird I am. But I've been wanting to run an experiment for years, and I haven't gotten around to it with Project Alf and Permanent Midnight.
Oh
so
God.
Like I don't even know like what episodes it is that guy wrote who Permanent Midnight is about, because it's based on a true story, and the character played by Ben Stiller. Like I'm pretty sure that Permanent Midnight is called Permanent Midnight because of Aleph equaling 0. So it's like permanently 0, and how Aleph as the fool corresponding to the fool is communicated.
It's a pretty Kabbalistic film, like of all of the heroin, Hebrew, like New York, California flicks, that one's
there's some great parts in that movie when he gets it on with that German woman. She's just like, maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know what's acceptable with YouTube.
I don't even know anymore what's acceptable, but it's true.
Yeah, the line that gets said, if you watch Permanent Midnight, you'll know what I'm talking about, so I don't have to tell you. But yeah, it's pretty great.
Well, all right, Alf. You've got also.
Just to be clear, people need to know, if they don't know this, like what I'm even talking about. Like, there's a guy who wrote some Alf episodes, who was just like full blown heroin addict, but also a health nut. So he was just like drinking the wheatgrass, running 5 miles every day, writing Alf episodes. Like it's just a trip.
I know a lot of people like that. That's the thing that kind of blows my mind, is that lasts for a while, but then he got blacklisted basically, like in the middle of Alf, which is kind of a bummer. for Alf, because Alf could have gone for probably more seasons if it weren't for the fact that they basically just wanted to get rid of the show. And, you know, I think also like the people involved didn't understand, because at that period of time, so they didn't understand how great it was. Also, like they're just, the guy didn't want to be on the show. He wanted to do theater. You know, it's just
am I tripping? Hey, you're an Alf fan. Do you guys remember this episode? And I don't know if it's in my head or if it really happened, because I was trying to track it down, but I don't know what it's called. But is there an Alf episode that you guys remember where like a grandfather dies of one of the parents or whatever, and they go off to the funeral, and when they come back, Alf has decorated the house with like party favors, and he's like celebrating. And they like come back and he's all woohoo, and they're like, Alf, why are you celebrating? This is a really sad time. And he's just like, well, in Melmac we celebrate when people die, just like we celebrate when they're born or whatever. Like, you know, like it's not a negative thing or whatever. And they have to like sit Alf down and explain to him why that's so messed up and that like he doesn't get it or whatever. And the whole time I'm like, he gets it. You guys don't get it. But like, do you know what I'm talking about? Does that ring a bell?
I feel like that's what happens with the grandma. I don't remember for sure, but like the grandma,
is the grandma?
Isn't she constantly like busting, or is it her husband died? It might have been like her husband.
Dude, who the hell was it? Was that Zella Rubinstein? No, that was the grand. No, okay, never mind.
I forget. I don't know.
No,
we went pretty deep down the Alf hole just now. It's true.
Right.
But I mean, it's just like the idea of celebrating death is important. And the other thing I wanted to say was like just with Footloose reality, because like Alf visits the Footloose reality, and it literally is a show about you know, he's like a guy who's visiting Goyim, like he's visiting Gentiles in like their in their habitat, their natural
they are
habitat.
Very Goyim for sure. Like
right?
Willie is, yeah.
And he's there to like kind of like show them like, you know, he's operating on like half capacity the whole time. Like he's just like, this is really, I'm being lazy right now by even just being around you people. But he's just constantly startled by their empathy, and he's like curious about it. And so as you watch it, he really does have a lot of empathy. Like he does care a lot, but he's numb to like material nonsense, like the things that everyone's like, aren't you so shocked by this? Like this hurts me so much. He's like completely surprised that it's something that it would sway anybody. I think that's like the beautiful thing. And then the Footloose thing bothers me because like we live in a world where this is real. There are people that actually think, you know, they're more righteous than God, like the Lucifer complex of like ministers, and that society is all about purity as opposed to integration of the shadow, which ends up creating this like dynamic which consumes itself. It's just like that's the thing that blows my mind about Footloose.
Right. But you realize like Alf as Aleph, as the Fool, as the Green Man, etc., the archetype of the alien that is Alf, like that's as connected, like the you know, degrees of separation that exist archetypally to the Green Man is as connected as Kevin Bacon is in terms of the synchronistic
it's
world.
Literally, it's the same. It's the same thing. And the fact that Alf is like the Hebrew symbol for I mean, just it is masculinity and like the soul, right? Like so how I don't know. And why do you think that is? Why do you think it is that they chose Kevin Bacon for 6 Degrees? Because it is perfect.
Did they choose him, or did that just come about, or is it both? I don't really know, but it's pretty perfect. I think it's just because he was in so many movies, but also just like, you know, how you we used to play it with anybody. Like we used, you know, road trips.
Stanford experiment, right? I think it was a Stanford experiment originally. No, it was a charitable organization called 6 Degrees. 6degrees.org.
What the hell is there? This whole, I mean, this was just our road trips. Like my sister and I would play this for freaking the longest time. Like, and then we got to the point where it was no longer just Kevin Bacon. We're like, name an actor and name another actor. How many steps does it take to get from this one to that one? It was just, you know.
In 1994, he discussed that he'd worked with nearly everyone in Hollywood or someone who's worked with them. And then they realized, like, could this be proven? And then they tested it. And they're like, wow.
Oh, this is how it came to be? I thought it was more of a spontaneous thing, like kids jump rope.
I only learned who Kevin Bacon was because of this. Like, because I was a child, you know, and I'd seen Kevin Bacon maybe. I don't think I even really, because like, we're like 6 years old. Like I heard about 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Like, so this predates like any film I ever saw with Kevin Bacon. Sorry, you were going to say, Thomas.
There's another interesting variation of this 6 Degrees of Separation Kevin Bacon, and this is like the most wild thing. So when I was working on the Homunculus Owner's Manual pamphlet with Juan Ayala from One on One podcast, shout out Juan, my homunculus.
Yeah, we'll talk about him later too.
There's an article called Degrees of Separation Within Wikipedia. How many clicks till the homunculus? And this guy did an entire study that no matter where you're at on Wikipedia, he boiled it down to like an exact number. And like, funny enough, homunculi are a lesser degree of separation than almost any other two topics. So like, no matter where you're at, and they have a whole list. So like, here I'll share my screen.
Please do.
So
this is very interesting. Homunculus has come up. Like it used to come up only like once a week. Now it comes up 10 times a day.
We're bringing it back. We're reclaiming the term. We're gonna re-own it.
Yeah.
So
do a homunculi AI though. But yeah.
This is the article by Carl Sims. But anyways, he explains the whole
give me a little
entire premise.
Zoom in a little bit.
Wait a minute though. That image, I know that image up above, because that's in our minds subconsciously, like the way that we relate to ourselves, like especially like a baby or something. When you're like,
no, that's that statue. Oh, what's that statue? That's like the Adamu or something. What is that? That's important. That statue.
So this is there's a lot of different types of homunculus.
That's like a rabbinical homunculus, right?
This one is showing you your nerve endings in proportion, like if the amount of nerve endings were proportionate to the size of your body parts. So
yeah, your perception of yourself through your nerves. Yeah,
this is the rabbinical homunculus. Okay, sorry, keep going. I just wanted
to so this is just a and that's why there's so many types of homunculi.
A version.
So here's the normal premise of the whole like degrees of separation. It's pretty self-evident, right? There. So Tom is 3 degrees from Sally, 1, 2, 3, far away. So, but basically what this study did is they took the concept of a homunculus, and I don't know if this was intentional. It even looks like a little homunculus here that's like running. But this homunculus, again, if you started from the United States, right, then it's only 3 degrees of separation from homunculus through Western culture, history of chemistry, homunculus. Stephen Hawking's goes through University of Cambridge to John Dee, who, the Enochian magic guy that let, his friend bang his wife. And then that connects to homunculus. Here's Barack Obama, right? That connects to, I don't even know who this person is, Nikita Khrushchev. Which then links to heredity.
Soviet prime minister.
And then that links to homunculus. So anyways, it was fascinating that out of all the different topics that someone could have picked, they picked homunculus and how well it connects to everything. And when you look at the things that are
why does Nikita Khrushchev connect to homunculus? Did he have one?
Well, he connects to heredity.
Oh,
okay. So the thing is, though, is that when it says Star Wars because of psychokinesis, I don't see Lord of the Rings, which should have it just because of Gollum. Hello,
right?
Well, you got Harry Potter that goes to black magic. That goes to John Dee, that goes to homunculus. And this isn't just like what the person researching this felt like needed to be connected. Yeah. This is actually just clicking around on Wikipedia pages until you get to
I'm going to give an honorary mention for the first time in a while to Ben Townsend, who was Unisocial, and he created with us at like the Timcast a number of software things. But one of the things he created years ago is Wikimaps, and it's essentially a software that it does this. So it figures out a map of how concepts connect to each other. And it's interesting because you could find things have a lot closer in association to each other. The problem with that is it makes AI super schizophrenic, right? That's like why they're kind of careful about like, what is the priority stacking of some connection to something? Because if you're like, oh yeah, like Khrushchev is like Obama is like homunculus, like
but how cool would it be to train AI on just like pointing out synchronicities, like the most annoying person to watch a movie with, right?
That's our favorite.
It's messed up, man. If you look up like coincidence, like the definition of coincidence, it'll say connections without a causal link or without an apparent causal link. But if you look up synchronicity, it's connections without an apparent causal link. Carl Jung's book, where he coined the term, is called Synchronicity and a Causal Principle, not a space causal principle. So like, and what is a synchronicity then? It's just a coincidence with meaning, but meaning is self-objective. So it's like the line is like really like thin when it comes to like, what are we even talking about when we say synchronicity? And so I think maybe there's a fear of like basically making like AI, like adding to schizophrenia or something. Like we got to maintain the order here or whatever. But I'm just like, what happens if we just release the floodgates on that? Because the thing is that things can be connected in ways that we wouldn't anticipate and that we don't know or yet understand, you know. And so that seems to me the significance of synchronicity compared to a coincidence, is just the recognition that there could be connections that exist beyond our current scope of what we assume how things connect, you know. Yeah, it's kind of profound.
I mean, yeah, and a lot of like what I've been dealing with recently are people that don't like synchronicity, and they're, you know, really into and it's hard to explain like the disconnect. Like this idea of atheism seems really interesting to me, so I joined a lot of groups also when I'm dealing with this religious thing that are atheist, but I'm confused because they don't really know what atheism means, like, because they don't have
Dude, completely, they're poles apart. Like when you talk about what atheism means from one person to another, because there's the atheists that I totally dig that are like, I don't know, and like, define your terms. Like,
isn't
what
that
are we even talking about?
Well, no, that was like, are they agnostic or are they nihilist? And if you ask them if they're nihilist, then you realize, oh, they're just thermal IQ is all they really.
Right, but there's atheists like Dawkins. Like I had to read one of Dawkins' books because I was living in the same house as like this guy who was like raised ultra Christian, and he was like, he went to UCSC and he was just a flaming homosexual, which was cool, no problem. But we'd get into arguments when it came to theology, and he kept on saying this shit that I was like, where are you getting this? And then finally he's like saying Richard Dawkins was very influential to him.
Yeah, Dawkins.
So I had to read his book because I'm like, if I'm living in the same house as this guy, I'm going to continue to get an argument.
The Selfish
God Deception, I think it was called.
Okay.
Was that, and so
Selfish Gene actually is like a little more reasonable because I kind of believe DNA is genetically selfish to reproduce. Okay.
It was a good book, but the problem
different.
is that I could see right away. It didn't take long before I realized what he was doing. He set up the definitions which he went to battle with. Yeah. And I disagreed with his definitions in the first place.
Beginning of everything.
At the beginning of the thing. So I'm like, what are we even talking about? And then if he defines his terms, but even leaves it vague enough, so it's just like barely defining it, and then he goes to like confront that thing that he's built, I'm just like, dude, that's not this. And so that's my issue, is that I'll meet atheists sometimes where it's like they're almost fanatical, they're almost fundamentalist in what they're saying when they say there is no God. And a lot of these people, in my experience, will be people who were raised with hardcore religion because they're wanting to rebel against it. But then what do you know? You ended up in another camp that's like on the other side of the river.
Yeah, and like it's
much the same bizarro world version.
It's not as academic as they think. So I'd be like, okay, so you say you believe in nothing. All right, you believe in nothing. Like, no, I don't believe. Like, go back to sleep. I'm like, well, wait a second. Like, then you just sound like one of the worst of the Pentecostals that you just like don't think about it. You just accept that there's nothing, and you're fine with that. That's the same amount that's more faith than I've ever had. You know, that's kind of crazy.
He's shouting at you, there is no God. And I'm like, define your terms. And it's just like, okay.
It's a weird thing. And so that's why I like Spinoza. I was like, okay, so atheism would be interesting. Like, I should get into some Spinoza groups, because the idea of trying to say, okay, well, what is this thing? If you're saying it's not a single parent who writes books, that's a start. But what is this thing? If it's the nothing, do you mean like that from like a Vedic perspective? Are you saying like this is the eternal beyond creation and destruction? Like, give me more is all I demand of an atheist. Like, I demand more, because if you're saying the answer is you're going to give me more specificity than, you know, the generalization. Like, this is like, I would do away quicker with the word gravity than the word God, because it's just as general without adding any more specificity. This is the problem with these terms, I guess. Sorry,
dude, I've run into the problem repeatedly being a Kabbalist, where I have somebody telling me that Kabbalism is totally atheistic. Same thing with Patanjali. They're like, this completely atheistic, because at the top you're like, God is no thingness. And then you'll simultaneously get people saying, oh, Kabbalah is worshiping many gods. It's not monotheistic. It's all these gods. I'm like, where are you getting that? Because I guess they take the Sephiroth to be deitized.
They're thinking demiurges, the idea of demiurges. And so that's the thing I find interesting. Is like, if you get into further levels of atheism, then you're dealing with demiurges, you're dealing with architecture, you're dealing with celestial bureaucracy, you're dealing with the like techno-Gaianism of the way weather itself. It should be more like, if you're an atheist, you should be a freaking meteorologist to start. Like, that should be like first degree.
Snap. If you're a flat earther, you should be like a pilot or something.
That would be sweet. Yeah. Based. A lot of them are. I've noticed. I get calls, but I don't know. Like with I like the idea though of atheism. If you're taking it to its like furthest conclusion, it's just that it never really gets brought there, and we're constantly brought back to this idea of generalization. So like, why even bother with it? Like, if it's just going to do the same thing, generalize, you know?
Right. I get it from Ricky Gervais sometimes. I used to listen to his podcast, and he's very a devout atheist, and so sometimes sometimes he's totally cool, and I follow him, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I gotcha, and then sometimes I'm like, wait a minute. You're veering on a belief system here, and it's not so subtle. Like, you believe something. What do you believe exactly? You believe that you don't believe? What is it?
Yeah, I just feel like any of these things should be tools for like academic pursuit. Maybe that's just my goal, I guess. Stefan dropping bombs, even though he's already done membership. What a stunner. All right. Data scraping plus AI content can induce psychotic break. A lot of things can induce psychotic break. Salts can induce psychotic break. Like
apple juice.
Yeah, bro. I mean, like, yeah, that's like one. It's true. We could put warning labels on apple juice. I agree, though. We should probably pursue working with data scraping more. What do you guys think about the whole? I'm sorry, I just had read more comment. This whole thing with the new dark network. Was it Dark Galaxy? Dark Galaxy European Euclid. This is supposed to be 1,000 dark galaxies. It's doing the thing like Italy. It's like, nah, like with the fist coming out of it. Like, if you're looking at that, I don't know. I've seen a lot of these pictures recently. Speaking of belief, what do you believe about this? I mean, I always loved this stuff. When I was like 6 years old, I remember like, look at all these cool pictures. And it is alluring, isn't it? Come on. Who's want to look at that? No? I would way rather be AI generating stuff myself. I think
that what was it? The most expensive shot of a film up to the point when it came out was Contact. The intro of the movie Contact, where they go like through like galaxies, and like they're like go solar system, and then they like it comes into this girl's eye. And it's supposed to be the young Jodie Foster. Do you know what I'm talking about? The intro to the movie Contact.
I know that movie. This? Yeah, Contact. But is there another thing you're saying, or no?
So no, it's the beginning of that movie. That effect that they did, where it's like it's the times 10 video that they may have showed you at school, where it's like it's the picnic and they zoom out and it's like times 10, times 10, times 10, and then they zoom in. And so, but in this case, it was just like they're starting way deep in space and they just like move forward, and it like ends in this girl's eye. But what's funny is, and she's supposed to be Jodie Foster when she's young in the movie. Right. But what's funny is it's Donnie Darko's girlfriend. So it's kind of like in terms of like archetype casting or whatever. I don't know. It kind of trips me out because like there's a subliminal at the end of Donnie Darko that I'm sure probably most people didn't catch if you're not crazy into Kabbalah or whatever, where it's like when the mother and that girl like wave at each other, the way that they're standing in relationship to the trees and which hand they wave to each other with, because you have an effect where it's like it indicates that they see the reality, but the kid next to the young girl, he waves like with his left hand and she's on one side of the tree and he's on the other. I'm sorry, it's way I'm communicating this is weird because it's hard to convey exactly. I presented it in a meme form at one point, but there's something about the right and left of the tree, the way that you step into the tree of life itself. So it's like there's a tree of life thing at the end of Donnie Darko, and they play on the right left hand path with the way that the mother and the girl wave at each other. It's hard. I'm sorry. you have to see it.
Man, so I was also thinking like about if we're using AI to produce, like it's like recording us. So someone just said, was it Stefan? He said instead of getting ads for dogwood, if you talk about dogs near your phone, if the data is push content, it can give someone the Messiah complex. So are we gonna get like better because it's listening to us and like this is all we're talking about? Like how is it gonna what's it gonna try to sell us, right? Like Messiah complex stuff. That seems like the only thing that AI could ever try to do. I don't think it's a
bad. I mean, hear me out. This might be partial devil's advocate here, but they're going to listen to us anyway. They're going to farm our data anyway, no matter what they can do. But it also kind of is convenient for us, the victims of this data scraping, right? Like the scrapees, we get some benefits because in a world where we're surrounded by ads, I would much rather get a bunch of weird Freemason, Mormon inspired advertisements than just like beard care and crap. You know what I mean? Like I would love to know what kind of weird stuff is out there that might fit my weird little fancy.
But you're gonna get beard care anyway. I'm sorry.
Well, I know.
Is this like Zizekification of democratization? Because at this point, what we're doing is we're democratizing aesthetic, right? Like you're adding flavor to the military-industrial complex. So you're saying, okay, what do we want the military-industrial complex to be flavored with? And we're saying, okay. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't mean to be that cynical about it.
No, I think I need to I don't think this is really coming out of the closet on this one. You guys know me well enough, but I just watched like a video of Zizek about talking about the Palestine-Israel stuff, and like I've watched a lot of videos on him, and I've read a lot of his stuff, and I'm just like, I kind of want to read one of his books now because I'm like, dude, I watched him speak for an hour on a topic that's so charged for so many people. And I can honestly say that this is so rare. There's never a time. There's people I respect the most I don't feel this way about. But I was like, I agreed with 100% of what he had to say.
Wow.
100%. That's never a thing. Like, I mean, even like Krishnamurti.
I get that way
like,
a lot.
I'll like disagree with something that he says. Like, 98% I'll agree with. But I actually it was like a talk. I'm like, dude, wow, dude. Yeah. And it's all real practical stuff, It's
what is it?
I'm like questioning myself. I'm like, dude, am I a freaking conservative communist? Like, I never would I have identified as that. But if that's what he's calling himself with his views, I'm like, I don't know.
You call yourself whatever your mom wanted you to be called, or whatever you don't want your mom to hear you called. You choose, but it doesn't really matter because words are words. Words are words. They're just a bunch of words.
It's a battle of words. But I'll tell you what though,
words are win.
For my own processing of whatever the fuck is what, like I just gotta say, I'm like, wow, that was like a slew of things that got said that were all really like, he's obviously taking a position, but I was like the whole way, I'm like,
there needs to be a meme about this, right? So like Garfield comes out and says he hates Mondays. Zizek says you don't hate Mondays, you hate capitalism. Jordan Peterson says you don't hate capitalism, you hate yourself. And then Nietzsche says you like hate is power, like it's good that you hate. And then the Tao says like the fact that you feel is fine, I think is like the thing.
Have you said this before?
No, I'm just thinking.
This is hot off the gristle. I'm impressed, man. That's pretty good.
That's how it goes though in the airplane. Inside the Ages, we live in a simulation. It's choose our own adventure. Our collective conscious faith will bring us to the multiverse destination where our faith drives us. The globalists are milking that power. So, okay, but here's the thing. And like, imagine that we're living in a stimulation, which is kind of what they tell you, right? Like there's this like going outwards thing. And I like that because you can talk to any atheist who doesn't care and you can ask them a simple question. Like, do you believe that if you like an atheist, you usually believe in the Big Bang and space and all that stuff. Do you believe that you're making choices, or are you just the logic? Like, are your feelings just also reactions, or are you just literally an excuse of the phenomena of things moving outwards?
Dude, you're tripping me out. The way you're doing that thing that you keep, how you're communicating, you're saying a stimulation, not just a simulation or whatever. It's like I'm remembering. This is so silly, and I don't think it's true. But the Kathy O'Brien, like, the explanation of like why it's called Monarch is nothing to do with like the monarchy or whatever. It's to do with the way that butterfly wings go and what would happen to the people they were experimenting on with like the way that they would react. Like,
oh really?
It's like this flutter effect. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Dude, it's because the mob was involved. It's like the whole West Coast thing. I got a ski reference in a second, but Steph and Colin, thank you. Stars are actually tailpipes of rockets leaving Earth. I like that. I agree with that. A lot of the time people think that things are coming down, but there's a lot of, pressurized explosions from volcanoes that also get up there and come down. That's a thing. That's real. But yeah, okay. So imagine that you're like doodle-doo Monarch programming and you're coming outwards, and that's also great. Like your program, but it's really a bit of both simulation and stimulation. It's like you're skiing, you're going down the hill and you're moving at a speed and you have a certain amount of control. You can do tricks. You can kind of stop where you're going, but you're really like you're controlled by the fact that there's certain things that are happening around you, but you still have the choice that you're making. So you do have like, that is interesting that we have like that amount of phenomena, right?
Right. It's very Matrix Reloaded in its implications, but yeah.
Yeah, like limited. You know what I mean? But is this the right Zizek video, by the way? Like Zizek on Israel Palestine? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
All right, I will recommend everyone check this out since David brought that up.
Yeah, you
I'm
know,
trying to
it's
find
like
my notes because
context.
I've got a bunch on that the Monarch naming because there's a lots of like guesses on where artichoke came from, what MK Ultra stood for, and
Right,
Monarch
well,
is one of them.
those are backed by a lot of people.
Yeah, like
into,
how is artichoke not
Monarch
from
is.
Castroville though, right? Isn't it just because it's from Santa Cruz? Like, is there a better reason that?
Well, I mean, one of the other ones was that it just happened to be the CIA director's favorite vegetable is another example that gets drawn. Yeah,
his favorite vegetable because he lived right there in friggin' Carmel, right? Like that's the thing. Okay, sorry.
The Monarch version though, I'm gonna butcher this because I can't find the exact notes, but that the word for butterfly in Greek is like psyche, and psyche is also like your psyche, and that the Monarch and its very specific migration pattern, it kind of reveals this deep-seated sort of programming, and that if you could take the programming that the Monarch butterfly just knows from birth where it needs to go, when it needs to get there, that could also be this overlay. So it had this like double meaning of the Monarch butterfly programming and the concept of a butterfly being psyche and the goddess.
So what do you think about that? Because we're talking about Jack Parsons and like Wernher von Braun involved with Moonchild rituals. So do you think that a lot of these earlier, like a lot of the bringing into science, are they bringing in the idea of trying to put a specific psyche? Are they instilling a specific psyche? Wow. Right? Because like if it's a daemon servitor, then it doesn't even matter if you believe that demons exist because you're just trying to make this type of personality.
That's the thing, is that it does. I agree. It doesn't matter. Like ultimately, like this is the issue, is when you're dealing, like I'll be having conversations with people, say at the bar or something, not lately, but in my life, I'll be talking to somebody and they're like, what, like, I want to distinguish between this issue where it's like, if people believe this and they have influence, like if you're talking about some far out concept and you're like, whatever, did we land on the moon, not land, but whatever, it's like, if people believe something and they affect our lives and they're determining policy and all this stuff, it doesn't fucking matter. It's like Mike Pence with doomsday religion shit. It's like, what like, you're like, what do I care? But it's like, dude, motherfucker believes this and he's making decisions. You know what I mean? Like,
note to self, tomorrow we're talking about ecology of poop and eschatology, but they're separate. But keep going.
Okay. No, it's just that issue of where, when you're talking about like what the elites believe, like in Freemasonry or whatever the fuck, it's like they're like, is that true? This thing that they may believe it. You're like, dude, does it even matter? The fact that they believe it and they're making decisions that affect our lives, like that holds its own weight of significance, I think. I don't know. Yeah, just putting that out there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're building it. Sorry, Thomas, if you were about to say.
No, I didn't have anything.
Oh,
I'm not allowed to say on Freemasonry. I'm going to get my throat cut. So
that's a bummer. Yeah. See, that's the best.
Well, there is one. There's one claim that, and man, I realize how this sounds from the outside. It sounds like such a
pearls before swine, bro.
Right. Okay, yeah, pearls before swine, everyone. Just earmuffs. You can't handle
it. Like a Lars von Trier film.
Spoiler. Okay.
But this concept, which is not unique to Freemasonry, but it's that without something like Freemasonry, we just devolve into pure chaos, and that Freemasonry is about making good men better. That's like this superficial, exoteric catchline, but really the esoteric version of it is that we take like you would take cavemen essentially that are just beating each other over the head and fighting constantly, and this like a culture that we've developed, Terrence McKenna, shout out, culture's not your friend, but like this culture that we have developed is convenience, and it is sort of this elevated version of what the base level of humanity is, and that it's so fragile that the Tower of Babel is a good example of that. Like, you lose language, everything falls apart. If we all rely on AI and AI gets taken away, everything falls apart. We're so fragile when we build everything on top of it. So Freemasonry is really about making sure the foundation literally doesn't get broken away, that even if society rises and falls, as long as you've got a solid foundation to build on, and B, the tools that you need to rebuild the architecture, and you've got everything you need. But the second that you lose the tools, or the second you lose the foundation, then it's essentially like, this is doomsday cult. Like, society just falls.
Thomas, isn't that two things? One, Boy Scouts as an early fraternal order to basically be like, well, say if you don't have a house, how are you gonna
Boy
exist, how are
Scouts
you going to
just
get
sold all their camps, bro. Boy Scouts is gone.
I don't know
You're
what's going on with Boy
another
Scouts now.
generation.
I'm talking about like the old school
Yeah, you
Boy
are.
Scout
you are.
fraternity,
Which
Scouts
kids used to
honor,
be called
you know?
D-Malay, like he's saying. Like before Boy Scouts, 200 years
Right.
ago, is
But then on another level, if you're the way you're describing that, it sounds like babble, and I'm just like I'm sure I've discussed this before, but C3PO. C3PO is a protocol droid. He's the male equivalent of Maria in Metropolis. So you have the female robot there. Like that's the significance, because when Babel falls, people can't understand each other's speech. The purpose of CP3O is to be. Am I saying that right? C3PO.
C3PO.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
C3PO, yeah, like the Babelfish from the aliens. Or
yeah, so
I'm flubbing the name, but yeah,
right, sure. But if the tower,
the Galaxy.
Thank you. But yeah, if the tower falls, then we can still understand each other's speech because we got this droid to be that foundation, right? So it's like it does. It's
right.
He's Freemasonry. C3PO is Freemasonry.
There's some issues. Yeah. There's some issues though, because like with I don't even want to like go there too hard. One of the first times I remember going to like Scotch Rite Lodge, and like this guy's taking me in the back and showing me stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, see these pictures? Like this is like the last lodge master. That guy was a dick. I didn't come here for like 15 years while that guy was in charge." And like, it's a lot of that. There's a lot of these stories. It happens a lot. It's the function of like Episcopos and Presbyteron. When you have elders that reach the top, this is a problem with some organizations that we need to update and like make 2.0 ex-church versions of. When someone's just the leader because they're the oldest, I mean, that's cool. It leads itself to transhumanism. Like you're trying to see very soon, like the only presidents of the Mormon Church are going to be 114. 120. You won't even think of one in 2043, 26. Like they're all going to be like the oldest people that live in the world. You know, that's crazy and amazing. But that's also not very conducive to adaptation. Like the idea of like most of these radical apocalyptic order out of chaos moments is it's a 14-year-old kid who's, you know, the queen of the Star Wars universe or the prophet.
Logan Paul. You can just say it's Logan Paul.
It's Logan Paul, bro. Or it's Jaden. Jaden reached out kind of secretly.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. Like we're in this weird reality, you know. I think that we need to keep it safe, and that's not true. Like giving it to trying to have old people keep it away, that actually doesn't make it conserve anything. The true conservation actually does come from radical liberal destruction of everything, because that just burns away at the husk and it returns it to the radical traditional root of the thing. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about Jainist monks, because you've got people that think nudism and OnlyFans and all this stuff is wrong. Well, really it is, but like for the wrong reasons, right? Because people are obsessed with these things because of Footloose society. And if you think about a Puritan monk,
it's symptomatic of neuroses, or relationship to it,
Dude, does anybody know about Ken Ham? Is that who's the Krishna cult guy that killed a bunch of people? Is that right?
Oh, I was just. Well, there's a new TV show out on this. I was just watching recently.
Just watched it too. We all knew a bunch of people associated with this guy because of Santa Cruz, like people who went and were joined with like after the death of Puritanism, is that right? So he's Propananda. You know what I'm talking about? Who's the guy? What's his name?
You're talking about. Yeah, I don't remember the name, but I know who you're talking about.
Come on, I hate when
Chicken
I do
Pop Pooperananda.
Dude,
Chupacabra.
Prabhupada. Sorry, I do.
Yeah.
I
there he is. Just look at his face. He's this guy.
I could have done better. Anyway, when he died, they had a bunch of wax figurines made of him all over the place, and some of his gurus became like sex cult worship match, like horrible people. And like the worst one, not all of them, but some of them did. And the worst one was probably, at least as far as we know, Kirtananda, who was like Keith Ham, or is that his name? Changed his name, Keith Ham. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I forget why we brought that up. What was the reason? What were we just talking about? Murder?
Wasn't he in a Full Metal Jacket too?
Basically, he does look like that guy. Was he really? I wouldn't be surprised. But no, Kirtananda. Nah. What were we doing?
Did we just come to the question?
Footloose. Footloose,
okay.
because he was Footloose because
Footloose.
he was a son of a Baptist minister, and so he really wanted to get rid of wearing pink robes and go to wearing modern gray Baptist suits because that's what Scientologists do, that's what Mormons do, that's what Americans do. But the gray suit, if you think about it, would have been really weird and offensive to a lot of people in ancient times. They would have been like, these are like Shivites that are wearing like ash colored clothes, which is this dark, like it's not like loving, or like pink is like floral and life, and all these green and pink are like dynamics. So yeah, they
Kermit and Miss Piggy, yeah.
See, Hermeticism is real, but with Kurt Ananda like trying to move into the gray clothes, then you think about the Jainist monks, because the Jainist monks wore nothing, because a true Puritan would be naked. Like we think of Puritans who want to cover their bodies. That's not Puritan. That's some weird, like a conservative today would be trying to be like a 17th century conservative, would cover their clothes. And there's a lot of people that are thinking, oh, the problem with these OnlyFans people is they're naked. No, the problem is people that have like sexualized and the material lust that they've created around this person, which isn't being fulfilled by actual better sources. Because if anyone could get love directly from the source, they wouldn't be trying to get that there anyway, if they got something that was more passionate and more fulfilling anyway. Yeah,
dude, you're getting into Lenny Bruce territory when he's just like talking about like, he's like, if there's a problem with the product, take it up with the manufacturer, you know, like do not remove this tag on the mattress, you know what I mean? Like he's like, so it's basically this idea. It's like, do you think just because you're wearing clothes you're not naked? Like, you know, and that kind of speaks to the fall, the nature of the fall. It's like, who told you were naked?
I gotta be careful not to show the screen when I search for industrial vagina. Keep going, sorry.
No, that's it.
Oh no, well, okay. Sheila Jeffries wrote this book. Is that right? Sheila Jeffries wrote Industrial Vagina, which Anne Simonton, a friend of mine, who broke up the she was on Sports Illustrated before she broke up the Miss California pageant by wearing a meat dress. This is Wiley's mom, yeah. And so she wore the meat dress. She invented the meat dress.
Long before Lady Gaga, huh?
Lady Gaga stole the meat dress. All comes back to Santa Cruz, really. It's kind of interesting because this is why Santa Cruz, after this Miss California pageant, would never happen in Santa Cruz again. That was the end of the Santa Cruz situation.
What is happening there in that picture? What is that?
Beverly Hills Supper Fire Club. Lots of bad stuff there. I don't know.
Okay.
This is
yeah. Is it related, or is that just,
I don't know if it is.
Came up in the search. Okay, thank you. Never mind.
Okay, never mind. I mean, the models that were fighting, like MK Ultra models, the things that happened to her. So, like, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into her story, but she will tell you, obviously, like, as a model, like, horrible things happened to her, which led her to wonder, like, why do men do horrible things? Which got her involved with, like, New York anti-sex, second wave feminist. She's a third wave feminist. And so you have in Santa Cruz, we have positive sex feminism, which, you know, all these fourth wave feminists were taught by the third wave feminists from Santa Cruz. You've got people in New York and Chicago, and they come to California. So they all learn from these people, which is why you have this all spreading now. We saw this as children. So I remember at like Thanksgiving parties, we'd have Ann Simonton with Susan Brett, and Susan Brett has the Reading is Sexy bumper sticker, right? And so they're fighting because one was raped and the other one is selling, you know, sexuality, which leads to OnlyFans.
Dude, you're like, exactly. So there's an issue, and I've watched this happen throughout my life with Santa Cruz, because I remember, like, and even before I was born, not that I remember that, but, you know, like, I've seen this transition happen over time, where people used to really be very organized. Like, when you talk about the left or whatever, you're like, oh, I live in a liberal place, and you watch them organize. They can't organize for shit, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse. And I remember really noticing it, I think around 2011 or 2012, where there was like some protest event, and it was like everyone fought over at the event over what the protest even was, what the emphasis was supposed to even be about. And I'm like, you're all supposed to be liberal, and you're just fighting with each other on, you think it's supposed to be about race, and you think it's supposed to be about queer rights, or whatever the fuck you think it is. And it's like, and there's just, it's like, about me. Like, it was almost a brawl. And it was like, you guys are all on the same side. What happened?
Except for the dude with the rock who brought his own rock from the FBI. Sorry.
You know what? And that's the thing, is that's all it takes. It takes one person to throw a freaking can of soup now, and now the police have an excuse to freaking shoot everyone with rubber bullets or whatever they want to do.
Flintstones and Bricks Industry. It's not what
right, word. Yeah. No, that's the thing. You could be like, everyone could be all there like, hold the line, we're having a protest, and then one motherfucker, some, you know, black shirt wants to throw a freaking can of soup, and then all of a sudden it's just total mayhem, and it's like, and you don't even know, like, because every person has to be attached to every person, like on that side. So if somebody acts out, it came from the group. It's not just one freaking person. Like that's why I don't want to go to protest. But I see a bunch of people protesting now. I want to go in the opposite direction because I don't trust that there's not going to be some either an idiot or somebody who's actually wanting to stoke further division. But it's just like, you can't organize for shit anymore. That's why it's like all this stuff, like the college students now, the shit that they're saying regarding fucking like it's beyond polarized, and it's musical chairs too. You're like, wasn't that last week like a right position? Now it's a left position. Now it's a right position again. It's like
always been at war with Oceania, David. I mean, come on.
What is going on?
Have you guys read The Crowd by Gustave Le Bon? I think it's like 1895 book, and it's been cited as like every bad guy that's ever tried to take over the world in modern history has kind of modeled a lot after this book. But it kind of posits that when you get a group together, when you get a crowd defined, that crowd becomes a super organism that is the opposite of the combination of all its parts. Some people are like, oh man, that thing, it's like greater than its parts combined. Well, a crowd is the opposite, where it has like all of the mass of all the people in it. Yeah, this is it. But it's got the intelligence of only the dumbest people within it, because only those dumb, if you look at it like a big brain with neurons, right? Only the neuron that has like the least amount of other connections is kind of going to be like the one holding it back. So therefore, everything has to cater to that lowest common denominator. And the more the crowd grows, the more chance that your lowest common denominator keeps going down and down and down, right? Because you keep getting bigger. And so there's never a point when a crowd, when it gets bigger, becomes better at reasoning or becomes like more capable of logic. It's always the exact opposite. Even if you get a lot of smart people together, the more and more people you add to that, it'll keep getting dumber and dumber and dumber. This is like too many cooks in the kitchen. And it's just this very basic premise. But it means that if you know this concept, then it's in your interest to get people into as big of a crowds as possible, because there's less that they can do about it.
That's pretty based.
I feel like between this book and Wilhelm Reich's The Mass Psychology of Fascism, you're just like that's like probably the if you wanted to educate oneself on crowd psychology.
Well, I would also
this book
say
is super wild too. Like it tries to break it down like a formula, but it's like, and this won't happen in Spain because the Spanish think this way. But if you tried it in Bolivia, it would totally work because this works with Bolivians. It's very matter of fact that the way that he's thinking.
Is he talking about Bolivia or Bolivarians? Like just socialist Bolivarians?
I'm just making up.
It's written in the late 1800s, so all of that was subject to change. But
also all related. So Curiarchy, I was just gonna say, since we brought up feminism, which is like, of course, if you're gonna get like a free lecture in feminism from a bro mansplaining, it's gonna be me. Check out the diagram, and here is, it's all blurry. That's lame. How about here? Is this better? No, it's all horrible. So a Curiarchy is this gonna work? I'll take it. Dude, why are you this way? Curiarchy is this idea of cross-sectional social classes that break each other down into smaller and smaller groups. So you start out by having, maybe this is a better one, I guess. Basically, you break people into smaller and smaller groups by saying, okay, well, here are men, over here are the blue, and then here are women, over here are the pink. And then that would mean that people that are not in between are the LGBTQ, transgender, etc. But then here are the able-bodied transgendered people, right? And then here are the disabled-bodied transgender people. So that would put a median here of people.
Wait, why is lesbian, gay, and bi like in this same category?
Because this is 1991, so you have to remember, like, this is an old diagram and things have changed a lot.
Why is there a TQA then?
That's probably why I can only get a friggin' blurry version of it, because they don't want you to.
They don't want people to,
know. Yeah, but this was I remember this from school, like the way that they were teaching it essentially, and I think they did try to adapt it as long as possible, and maybe that's why
the women of the year are men now. The women of the year of all women, the best women are men now. I've seen a lot of publications who are arguing that.
We're pretty good at shit. I don't know if you've noticed.
It's because we got nothing else, like we can't be moms. So, all All right. But yeah, like the idea of like privilege breaking you up into smaller groups is interesting for groups because now you've got this idea that you have the biggest group possible, which means they can't make any decisions. That's controlled. But now you've got women and men, and you've got able-bodied men and disabled-bodied men, and then you've got like so as you start to get it down to like disabled, native, lesbian, Democrat, transhumanist who likes coffee, like you've now got yourself into such a small demographic. And the smaller, like, oh, I only like music from Alice Cooper. No, I only like music from Alanis Morissette. And like, so we're gonna fight over it. Like, this is how you do it. This is how you make sure that no one can ever have a majorative in that system. Right?
I feel like we covered this, but that South Park bit with the like we come up with your brand, but then every single one of them has victim at the end. It's like you're a strong
and victim.
And victim. Okay, sorry, come on, Thomas.
No, so there's one way that you can weaponize it where it's like I'm gonna keep separating people into smaller and smaller groups so that they're more and more isolated. But it's also like, imagine if, just random example, let's say the FBI, right? And you know that there's like a certain operation that you want to do somewhere. Imagine you could pinpoint with such specificity, like I need someone that really likes trench coats and they listen to this music and they've got this kind of background and they've attempted to buy a certain sort of device X number of times. Like, once you can do that super Facebook advertisement drill down, you can find like the one person. I don't know if you guys remember this, like 10 years ago or 20, that there was like these articles where people would get smart enough that they could advertise to like the exact CEO of the company they wanted to work at by just saying like advertise to all people in this, bracket and this age group and this region. And if you just threw like $500 at it, you were guaranteed that the person that owned the company that you want to work at would see the ad eventually. But invert that to where now it's like the FBI or the fill in the alphabet letters.
I want to be more like Bowfinger. Can you be like Bowfinger? I want to be the guy that you pay to like make sure people like see your script, like, come on, sir, and like just put it like drive in front of people, flip over cars.
You know what's happening on freaking X right now is that people are promoting their tweets, and you can pay as much as you fucking want to, and you can. And so if you wanted to get whatever message out there that you wanted to get, you drop $1,000 on that. That's not even that much for a lot of people. That could be a drop in the bucket for some people. And all of a sudden you're reaching. You're like, wow, they're the most. Somebody recently just went beyond what the reach that Elon has, and I know it's sensational and maybe people are into it, whatever. But I'm like, I can see it. I'm like, dude, I bet you that motherfucker paid like. He's like, here's 10 grand. Let me be the most popular person on Twitter right now and influence, the minds or not even just influence, but get people to react to me. And so whatever I want
to Xirtus.com. If you send $1,000, just put it in the description what you want it to be used for, and we'll make sure to promote it that way. That's a good idea. If you want to pay for us to like harass x.com, or if you want us to have like a billboard in the Midwest that people drive by, please pay for it. That sounds great.
We'll commit crimes live on feed for money.
We'll get somebody to do it. Just like
there won't be crimes when we commit them. They'll become crimes after we commit them, because now they'll know that you can do it.
That's how my life works, actually. That's pretty real. I hate that you said it.
Well, you know what? Biz Marquis tried that too, and it didn't work out for him.
He was black.
I want to find out how long that sample was too, because that still blows my mind.
It's not about the sample. Like, again, like I have like the whole, like, just batshit number of young swing state voters are RFK Jr. are sure that RFK Jr. should be president. I said think wrong. They're sure though. Let's be real.
What a headline from Vanity Fair, huh?
Oh, you know what Vanity Fair is like. I really want to blame Best Levin. I don't want to give Vanity Fair the credit, or even blame them. But it is interesting because we've talked about this a few times. This idea that he kind of can choose the swing state voters he wants to influence, so he can kind of force the election in a certain way. What do you think about that? Plus, also there was recently the restraining order. This just happened today, I think. He's had crazy people that have been trying to break into his house.
Who broke in, got caught, came back. came back again. Like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah. And so the way the article goes is that the lawyer and conspiracy theorist who is running as a presidential candidate, RFK Jr.
Not biased at all.
Okay. So like, I don't know. I mean, are they trying to get him, or is this just letting anything happen to him, or like what the heck? And like, yeah, this is kind of weird. That's the weirdest thing I've heard this week, probably, is that they're just letting people attack his wife. Cheryl.
Now wait, I'm curious. Is he a conspiracy theorist because of what? But like, is it something specific?
Well, he has a theory that his dad was shot, right? Or so his uncle was shot. Was it? Yeah. It's his dad.
He was shot. He doesn't think that Sirhan actually got a bullet in him. He thinks that Sirhan fired a gun directed at him, but the shots came from very close from behind.
He believes that Kennedy's achieved bhakti actually, and their heads actually ascended material form in that moment.
No, that was his uncle. Yeah, his dad. He actually thinks other things about, but yeah, no, he thinks his dad pronounced the ineffable name in his own head. He didn't even say it out loud.
That's what it was.
His head just exploded.
He said Yahweh, but right.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's the best story. That's Occam's razor. I don't know, but I really, the main reason I care is because I don't want Cheryl hurt. You know, I care about Cheryl. I'll admit that.
I'll tell you, I think that like I don't agree with everything that he has to say, especially on Israel, but I do think that he's honest. I think he says exactly what he thinks, and that I also think that if he's given evidence to the contrary of what he currently believes, he's shown repeatedly that he will adjust to the new information. And so, you know, and it's a paradigm. It's who he's surrounded by. Like he's, you know, like
the Israel thing is like he can't say anything else. Like they're voting for him. They're giving him money. Like what's he gonna do? He can't say anything.
I don't even disagree with him completely on all that stuff, but he does get to the point where he's like literally just saying Zionist talking points. So I'm sure he believes them, and that's the thing.
I'm gonna say some Zionist talking points real quick. Here it goes. All right. So here's the thing. Someone asked me the other day if I was like pro. What was it? I think they said I was like pro-Palestine or something like that. Are you pro-Palestine? It was a weird question, I thought. He's like, I mean, I grew up like, I would say up until like 2007, 14, when like the state was furtherly destroyed, right? The state Palestine, I advocated for the existence of the state of Palestine, and I had questions about, you know, even at the time Israel.
So you mean two-state solution idea?
I mean, it's a weird question. Like when people say that, what do they freaking mean? Because like, do they even know Palestinians? I have Palestinian friends. I know hundreds of people that are associated with like tight family communities in Chile of Palestinians. I know like in LA Palestinians, and it's funny because when people are asking me this, like they're thinking of sand people from Star Wars. Like a lot of the Palestinians,
it's the Tusken Raiders, right?
Really like sophisticated people, and like you know they'll be blonde or have green eyes, or they'll be black, or not necessarily, but like just Arabic. Like it's just that there's a lot of diversity in what a Palestinian is. There's a lot of blonde Palestinians. There's a lot of Christian. I know a lot of Christian Palestinians.
That's true. And dude, this is why Malcolm X he went crazy when he actually visited Mecca, because he had all these preconceptions from the paradigm that he existed within, that he was told about, and then that's why he came back and had to shake hands with people who he had previously, you know, called Uncle Tom and talk shit to, you know. It's like, and then his own people fucking shot him for it in all likelihood too. So
but like here's the problem on one hand, which is that like Palestine has collapsed. There are Palestinians I advocate for in Chile, like I said, or in Syria, or in other parts of the world where Palestinians have moved, in Egypt. And I think it's horrible that there's not a state, because the value of what a state is. For instance, if you're not a state and you commit any sort of these acts of self-defense, it's called terrorism, because you're a non-state actor committing violence. So a state is by Weber defined as a legitimate source of violence. So by not having a state, you have no legitimacy to defend yourself. Again, this is what North Korea's argument is. So I understand it from that perspective, but also in terms of Palestine doesn't have as many Palestinians anymore. You have a lot of people that have moved in to fill that power vacuum. It's kind of a synthesis of Israel, the kinds of violence that have allowed themselves to be Hamasified. You've got people from like Somali or from Minnesota that have like ended up in this power vacuum, and it's suiting a violence purpose, right? Which makes you think to yourself, okay, this isn't really the Palestinian people. This isn't really the Palestinian state, even to the point that people are saying that. and that's their job. If that's at all true, then we should probably pursue that logic a little bit. But then you have to think about Israel as a state, because everyone I know from Israel, not everybody, but a lot of my friends from Israel have left last year, or have been begging like anyone they know, like, hey, I do this website software, I program. Can you get me out? Can you get me out of Israel? They've been trying to get out of Israel for the last year and a half, 2-3 years. And they've been saying things have been going south. And they're getting to a point where it's like, you've got a state that's about to have a civil war, all before all this, right? And they're all part of the army. So if you're in the army and you want to have a real trial, you have military tribunals, right? For almost any citizen, you can have a military tribunal. So you're at a point where if the state is collapsing and they have no a decent amount of the populace has lacking confidence in their president, Netanyahu, who went to the same high school in Chicago that Adam Krigler went to. I mean, it's just the whole thing is just like, eventually you have to see like how many people will die. And now they're saying that like their own citizens are dying because they're allowing for their own military to allow for their own citizens to become casualty of war. So how much of that population, we're talking about thousands of people, at what point does it become, sacrificial, right? And like, if these are people that really, especially are Israeli citizens themselves, who do not advocate for violence or for like the progression of the state of Israel it has taken in the last 18 to 36 months. This could be like cleaning up people that they don't agree with. And I think it's about time we start noticing and talking about that. I don't know.
It's really amazing how difficult it is to actually have like a more like just straight like critique of the state of Israel, because now it was already convoluted and now it's that much more difficult. So there is 10,000 plus soldiers, that almost everyone's a soldier, but people that dropped out of the army because of their conflicts around what they were participating in and how they were going, what they witnessed and how things were going about, how people were going about their jobs in Palestine. And it's so twisted, because like, there was these massive protests in Israel, and now all of that has stopped for the most part, at least in terms of its direction, because now you have it's like their own 9/11, like, and it's so twisted. You're like, how did this even happen in the first place? I know people are probably looking at a million things on this online. I don't know if my words are as great a value as what's you can already get access to, I guess, but it's just
I mean, it seems like more like it's true. A lot of people are talking about Israel and they're talking about Palestine, but I don't know if they're talking about from that perspective necessarily. I mean, even like I get inundated every day with like the idea like, oh, there's casualties of war and everything. But the question still remains at the end, like, what are we going to have? And it's going to have to be some sort of a secularized state that has some sort of, I mean, and the only one I see that has like future, like you're talking about two different ideologies. One of them is man-made Masonic law, which is probably the most functional system we have in a sense, although it seems to be collapsing, versus this idea of like radical God's law. But let me tell you what God's law is, kind of a thing. And that's very violent too. So, I mean, which one is more likely to allow for self-determination? Right now, the secular state's not. Right now, the secular state's less likely to do that. The violence that we see with Islam is a modern contemporaneous idea. Historically, Islam has been the state that allows for people to be Jewish, Christian, Muslim, pagan, whatever the heck they want to be if they pay for and the tax only exists to support social services to keep the state going, which is why the mafia exists, because of the mafia. So it seems to me like Sharia economics might actually be a more stable system in the Middle East. And it's hard not to notice that when you look at Afghanistan, the collapse of the fentanyl and opium market. I mean, 99% of opium was ceased production. I think almost all of it is ceased production in Afghanistan because they just stopped it. Right. So it's the future could be really the opposite of what we're told to expect every step of the way.
Well, the discussion used to be a different discussion. So if you talk about like when Obama was president, if you had strong views on what was happening in Gaza at that time, you were part of the fringe for the most part. Like it was like the extreme left that felt that way. And now what I'm seeing is a lot of college students that's involved, like there's a larger indoctrination process that of like attitudes towards colonialism and the problem of the whites problem. And so now I'm seeing a lot of that just get attached to like to the Jews in such a way that it's coming across to me as extremely like anti-Semitic in the real sense, where it's not just about being critical of Israel. I'm hearing things where it's like attitudes from like, you know, I'm saying like young people, because I'm seeing it a lot from young people, and I don't know if it's all coming from like their PR curriculum or what the hell, but it's like you'll hear things about like in favor of Hamas, and it's like Hamas is completely like a terrorist organization. Like this is like,
doesn't represent Islam, right? Yeah.
It certainly doesn't represent all the people of Gaza, and like so I'm just like, I like what Ziggy Marley said,
who often are Christian again, Palestine.
Like, totally, and he's saying free Gaza from Hamas, and I've been saying for years, free Israel from Zionism. And so like, and you know, and I'm not alone with that. And I think the numbers aren't really properly represented of the amount of people that feel that way, namely Jews that feel that way, you know, about like the problems with Zionism and putting race above the religion, you know, or above what it means to be Jewish. Like that hyper focus on race is really weird to, you know, like that's very problematic. And so I see
the implementation of like Babylonian Talmudic xenophobia, the idea that you know, because we've been living in exile, you ought to be exiled from our table. Is I don't say contemporaneous, but it's a modernization of Israel. It wasn't the way ancient Israelis practiced that, right?
Right. It's not a traditional thing, and it seems like it feels very new agey to me in a way that I've seen it from Netanyahu when Stephen in speeches in the past, where he'll say things where you're just like, that sounds so like if anyone else was saying that about any other culture, about yourselves, like it wouldn't go over very, very well at all, you know. But somehow nice picture. But yeah, no, it's just, I don't know, man. Yeah, that's it.
I think they should just sort out whatever they're going through. Just sort it out.
I love some of the stuff I'm seeing on Paranoid Americans page right here. I hope I get away with that. These are like we're near the end here, so I'm just saying what I can get
That's a great book, by the way. 777, the other Kabbalistic texts. That's an important. That's like the original sync book right there.
Do you want to do the chosen one? Like, so I'm gonna go into this for a second. We talked about Ripaverse on Adam's show yesterday, and Paranoid American loves Ripaverse. He thinks Ripaverse is one of the greatest things. It's great. He's a good guy. But I find this interesting anyway, that the comic artist because we were watching the thing and we're looking at all the stuff that they're making, the comic artist that's doing the Ripaverse stuff did the chosen one for Paranoid American. That's freaking right. Isn't that amazing? So
that's right. I got him first. We had him first. And
so that's another reason why I'm kind of hoping that you guys will finish this 85 followers. We need 15 more. Right? Is that what we're looking at there?
When we get to 100, Juan says that he will allow us to put it out, and I've already got issue 3. The pencils are going to get started in like a week or so from now, but this is going to make sure that we can actually print this one out. But yeah, it's done by Igor Chikal, and he did issues 1 and 2, including in issue 2's got Sam Tripoli, it's got XG, it's got Johnny Woodward in it, it's got Alex Stein is in the book. A whole bunch of people are in it. There's Alex right there.
I freaking missed out. That's all I gotta say.
It's got Gordo from those conspiracy guys. He's in episode 3. And if we can see, like, we need episode 2 to happen so that episode 3 can happen. And if episode 3 can happen, then we can get Andreas and a bunch of other people in episode 4.
You see why I care so much now. So you guys really should do this for me. If you can't do this for Juan, if you can't do this for Thomas, if you can't do this for America or God himself, I just want to be in the next issue. Please do it for me. That'd be sweet.
I got the first one in the mail the other day, along with a bunch of stickers, and I'm very happy with my purchase. I will tell you that.
Oh, and I sent you a keychain too. I got these Room 237 keychains made up that I freaking love.
So
thank you.
I feel
hanging from my lamp.
We've said this before, but like Paranoid American comic books are the comic books that the Frog Brothers use as weapons to fight against demons, ghouls, vampires, and Satan himself. And I mean this, and I need this to be true. And it's like, this is the kind of thing that the world has such boring comic books. I mean, it's not just that they're woke, right? Like, I think that's the thing, is that they're boring. Like, the wokeness actually is less boring if it's done right, because it's so shocking. right? So it's not the. So this is the thing. Rip-a-verse. I'm not saying that you're a rip-off verse. You know, I'm not the Dick Show here. I gotta get rid of that. It's not the issue, but it is a problem that Rip-a-verse is boring. It's not boring enough to that I'm upset about it, but that you didn't just like. It's one thing to get this artist. This is a personal complaint. You should have gotten Thomas Gorins. You should have gotten this. You need to incorporate Paranoid American kind of comic stuff. I get what you're doing. I love what you're doing. You're saving comic books for children.
You need an imprint. There needs to be a Rip-a-verse Paranoid American imprint.
I'm not upset. Like, it's a good thing that you're making. Like, look, this is another mission, and you're helping. Like, kids just need a comic book that's another Spider-Man. That's cool. But you know what they really need are freaking weapons that they can fight against demons with, which is why I say you got to read Paranoid American. All right. That's all.
The very first comic I ever put out was Time Samplers #1, and it's about time travel. It mentions silent weapons for quiet wars. It mentions V2K satellite. It mentions Baron Rothschild. It mentions Skull and Bones. It mentions the Federal Reserve, the Jekyll Island Hunt Club. This is all just in the first issue. So, I mean, I love what Rip-a-verse is doing. And I think when you say boring, I'm not going to say that exact word, but like, I've never really been in love with
he's playing
superheroes wearing spandex. And I don't know if it's playing safe or it's playing for what people in the States want, at least. Because, man, if you go to any comic convention, there's an overwhelming majority that just like want you to draw Spider-Man and Superman and Batman for them over and over again.
Am I just deaf to like normie? Like, cause like I don't believe in them. I don't believe they really exist. I believe deep down everyone's really like wanting to see Darkwing do an exorcism.
Let's blow this out to the comic world as a whole right now. Most comic conventions are anything but. Really, comic conventions in 2023 are movie and TV show conventions. And in fact, that's usually where you're going to see someone that hasn't been even in the industry since like their last episode of Star Trek, came out. And it's cool to go and see them, but it still has absolutely nothing to do with, say, comic books at a Comic Con.
I think it's a bigger issue, and here's what I think it is. So in like the 20s, and this is the way I look at it, because as a kid I watched a lot of movies, right? In the 20s, you had pretty interesting movies. People were on a lot of cocaine. They were just strapping cameras to their backs and getting on trains, and it was a great time. Clearly, I missed the 20s, but the 30s, because 1929, you got this crash of 29. All of a sudden, every movie after 1929 is like glamorous, big budget, silver dresses, and it's simple. Like My Man Godfrey is actually like one of the more deep movies for a while because they want escapism. And I think that maybe this is like really like it's the tragedy of our time that we no longer are living in this like perfect world where we escape pleasure with Marilyn Manson and suffering and enjoying our apocalyptic movie. Like 1999 was so pleasurable that people were like, there were cutters. And now we're back to this like post-depression period almost where people just want escapism and they just want to see, Superman and Spider-Man. I mean, I think people like, so my friend Garrett's saying he needs Superman, that the world needs Superman. Like we're at a point now where he never liked Superman growing up, but we need him because he's this altruistic purity. And it's just this it's the American.
He's America versus the Nazis. I mean, that's like the whole point. He was come up. I've discussed this on the show before, right? Like why Action Comics? He's throwing the Volkswagen Beetle. Is it a Volkswagen Beetle or does it just look like a Beetle? Whatever. Is it really
Action
a
Comics 15? Isn't it?
Is it really a Beetle? I don't know if
I think it is. Isn't it? I don't know.
I think it feels like it's supposed to be, but it's
not 15.
Well, there is him throwing a literal beetle. That's kind of
you're not gonna. No. I mean, you put in beetle. See, it's not a beetle. There it is on the left. Seen it?
Oh, this one.
I always visualize.
No,
it
this is Superwoman. This is Superwoman. No, he definitely.
Action Comics #1.
He's definitely throwing.
It is Action Comics #1.
Yeah, he definitely throws a VW. There's no question.
Oh, it is. Is that a VW?
Well. Okay, no, it's not. No, it's not.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a VW.
Is this a Mandela effect? Did we just find a new one? Whatever the case, it is a fact that he was come up with by two Jewish men living in Chicago as an answer to the Ubermensch that's why he's Superman, but he's an American version of it. So it's kind of like combating their ideology with our own is essentially what Superman is, as far as I can tell. Yeah.
Well, and also the rabbi, because he's trying to follow. He's at the time, kids were trading rabbi trading cards, and there were books about which rabbi you followed and everything like that. And he's like, we need to have like the all-American rabbi, and like people thought of rabbis as superheroes in a lot of ways, right? Because they were altruistic characters that came from another world and had like superpowers because they followed the covenant. So they had the powers of the priesthood. So they had to wear this weird clothing, everything about them. And so like that kind of, again, with like going from pink robes to Baptist gray suits, going to Superman, because Superman looks just about as weird as a rabbi does, like by our standards. Like if he's walking down the street, he's not wearing a suit like everybody else, but that allows for the kid to imagine the consequences of that outfit, or what it means, like what social role he has. It doesn't have a pre-configured social expectation, this outfit. It does now because it represents the superhero, but like at the time, like was this outfit something that, like, who could you imagine wearing something like that, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it'd be weird if you saw somebody actually walking around dressed like that. But if they're flying, then it makes more sense.
Dude, inside me there are two wolves. One of them is Chardin, and the other one is Lefebvre. I'm pretty sure. Okay, let's go to
which one are you feeding?
So I think they're both making baby wolves is the thing that's happening. So make sure you go to Paranoid American, because like no kidding, like the comic books that we read, and the reason that you need them, keep them around for kids so that they're prepared to fight the dark and the night. I think that's one of the major reasons why you all need these. And yeah, get the shirt so you can make an icebreaker conversation. I mean, dude, come on. Like I can imagine like a bunch of you walking around in this shirt. Can you imagine the girl that walks up to you while you're wearing this shirt and you get to have that conversation?
Check out the shirts page too. I added a link at the top to make it easier to find all the shirts, and at the very bottom I've got my new Mexican adrenochrome. Or there it is, the green one.
Oh, adrenochrome. Yeah, see? Like, that's adorable. And like that's a great icebreaker. So like you can imagine like right there, some girl's like, what's adrenochrome? Or she's like, hey, you know what that means? Either way, she can start mansplaining to you. So yeah, get yourself some comic books. Get yourself the starter pack, the Paranoid American 2023 combo starter pack, which has the Chosen One, bunch of cool stickers, MK Ultra Chick Track, and the Homunculus Owner's Manual, and 6 prints, which is pretty sweet. So,
and believe it or not, this is actually surprises me still, but by far and large, my most popular books are children's books. I've got the American Cryptids coloring book. I've got the Connect the Dots Confounding Conspiracy of Chemtrails children's book, and now I've got the comic with Sam Tripoli called Chaos Twins. These are all like family friendly, all ages friendly sort of books, but then if you scroll down a little bit, there's like a Hunter Biden party pack with like a dime bag, and then under that there's a comic about crack cocaine and John D.
What you should do is
order a dime bag.
You need a kids section right here or something, so I can click on kids, and then it's like all.
That's a great example, actually.
And all kids stuff. I would be all about that.
And put it right next to the adult section, so kids, like it's only a click away. Yeah,
just like the hotel on-demand entertainment. That was fun times. And you just call them afterwards and be like, "Hey, I accidentally did that." Well, just don't watch that channel, kids. American Cryptids. All right, and then go to the syncbook.com. Click on videos so you can go to the. Well, if you haven't already seen Hindsight is 2020 documentary, do that. But then go to the Syncflix, because there's all kinds of crazy Syncflix that you can put up right here. But that's not enough. You can't stop there. Go to MK Ultrasound on Twitter, x.com, because there you can find links to all of his Syncflix and more, because he's constantly posting new Twitter. Yeah, follow him right here. And then check out, is it Media? Is that where I go?
I would actually recommend going to highlights. Yeah. So I'm putting all the sync films on the highlights, so you can just bypass all the in the middle stuff. Yeah.
I'm gonna send this to Marilyn Manson, and I hope they're chill about it. I feel like they're gonna like it. I think that'll be fun.
I know it. This is the most random thing. This scene reminds me of Gummo so much, where Chloe Sevigny's got like bleached eyebrows and like bleached hair.
Oh yeah, I do like Gummo. Good movie. I should be very careful with even looking at this one too. But yeah, make sure you go to David Plates. Go to David Plates. Check out David Plates' work. Ooh, Russian production of Bluebird. This is some Blavatsky stuff going on right here.
So this is crazy. So this in 1976, I think it may have been filmed a couple years before then, but it was released in 76. This was Behind the Iron Curtain, an American production with Jane Fonda and Elizabeth Taylor, and like, so you have this like all-star cast, American cast, filmed in Russia from a Russian fairy tale that was the inspiration overtly for the Wizard of Oz.
Via Madame Blavatsky's Theosophic Society, which was saying essentially that we live in a new world that's like under like a new illusion, like a veil, right?
Yeah. So I actually tagged Peter Levinda in this, and he liked it, and that made me feel really good. But this is actually a sync with Electric Light Orchestra's album El Dorado. So El Dorado and Bluebird are basically about the same thing. It's pretty
based. That's
awesome. Yeah. So that's good. And then also recently I just put up the Eminem's Kamikaze album with the 2 Deadpool movies at once.
That's right. It's up here somewhere.
Which I also recommend. Yeah, it's like right there. Yeah. And so I don't know if that's.
Marshall. Marshall.
Right. So it starts out. The 2 movies are 2 different lengths. So if you just for 1 second go into the middle of the movie and just like look at what happens here. So or anywhere in the middle. If you can
I might have just frozen it. Let me see.
Oh, okay. Oh boy. But whatever the case, it does a double screen. And so it's both movies at once. So there you go.
All right, that's what you get. That's about as fair use as I can get on YouTube without getting some clearance first. But
Thank you.
This is what fair use is all about. This is why we live this way, because we're making art out of art, and you can't control us. Art. We're not your slaves. You're our slaves. Very good. Well, and then so make sure you go to David Plate, follow him on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, follow me around the internet, go to charternova.com. Make sure you join the Discord group where we're chatting all the time. All of you that became members and super chatted, God bless you. You're super rad. And I'll see you tomorrow.
You will be spared. You'll be spared.
You'll be spared. You have no idea what you just did. It's a very shrewd move right there. All right. Take care. See you soon.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.